Alrighty, it's getting to be that time again, and we are ready to go. Hey everybody, Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy, and I'm an American expat living in Korea. Wife and I sold everything in the United States, lock, stock, and barrel, even everything in the kitchen junk drawer. We sold it all. Took a couple of suitcases. We spent some time in Oahu, loved that, saw whales, had some of the pastries and got a suntan. My feet got bigger by like one size. That was kind of incredible because instead of boots and working, I ended up just being flip-flops for a year. Yeah, it'll do that to you. Realized how I needed to de-stress, and that was really good. So the next step was retiring overseas, and we chose Korea. Now, there are a lot of different options that were available. We looked into Puerto Rico, we looked into Costa Rica, we looked at some places in South America like Belize, Mexico. Nope, that was totally off the list because of crime and cartels and I saw that coming a long time ago. So that was immediately off the list. And I looked at other countries as well, and that included Thailand. And overseas retirement woes, why are Westerners saying goodbye to Thailand? I'm so glad we didn't go to Thailand to retire because it's getting to be a mess and tons of people are leaving Thailand. It is quite the interesting little thing that we got going on here. But the reason is, why are these people leaving? Now, it's no clue that as time goes on, people end up having to pay more for goods and services and utilities and rents and so on and so forth. In some countries, those increases are more than others. But the draw for overseas living has usually been because of the lack of expense has drawn people to these places. And then, which is great. So a bunch of people show up, and then the influencers show up. So, I think on one hand, influencers kind of showed us, well, hey, look at this place in Thailand, and look at Phuket, look at Chiang Mai, and all of these different places, and not just Thailand, but all of these other places around the world, which were kind of like on the low, the down low, and you had some people that were retiring there and living there, and it was great. But then the influencers got a hold of that, and they could make money by doing their videos and highlighting these places, and the next thing you know, bunch of people in Western states, countries are like, hey, why don't we do that? And then you have a bunch of Westerners and Europeans that are going to these countries, and it just kind of becomes a tipping point. It used to be really good. It used to be really nice. We've been to Thailand. We've been to Bangkok, Phuket, really enjoyed it way back in the day, but things have changed immensely. And in my other videos, I talk about, you got to have a backup plan. And unfortunately, hopefully I'll never have to use the backup plan. We live in Korea, we retired here, but again, there are some considerations that what happens if a war pops out here in Korea. North Korea comes down, there's a natural disaster or something like that, or, Lord forbid something happens and we have to go to another country. Maybe I need some hospice care or assisted living care because I'm getting really old and infirmed. Probably don't want to do that in the United States because it's way too expensive, so I need to look for other countries. Thailand was one of those countries, but it's having a lot of problems. So we're going to take a look at some of this stuff. I'm going to reference some notes so I don't screw anything up. So at least give me a like and subscribe to the channel for trying. Okay, so let's just start off with this. Thailand has been great. And again, I said that we had been to Thailand, Bangkok, Phuket, looking to go to Chiang Mai and check that out. We've never been up there, and that looks like a really interesting place. A lot of expats and retirees went to Thailand. And initially it was like, okay, well, if we can't go to Korea, maybe Thailand will be the answer. They've got real good medical care, everything's laid back, fresh food, vegetables, in the bigger cities for medical care and so on and so forth, kind of more up-to-date living standards of, as long as you can afford to pay. But those prices were really low. So that looked really good. And even back then, the retirement visas and all of that, it was pretty much cut and dried. Come show up, you do some paperwork, you got to meet a certain income level and so on and so forth. But if you meet the requirements, then you can live in Thailand, and yeah, it's not bad. You get your extensions, you do your renewals, and boom, Bob's your uncle, and there you go. Unfortunately, that has all changed. And just like everything else in the world, everything changes. We change, the world change, countries change. And I've stated this on this channel that, Korea might change as well. So we might have to leave, even though we enjoy it here right now. But what happened is that so many people went to Thailand, and then basically after COVID, to me, it seems like Thailand is trying to make up for all the lost money that they got when the world shut down, which they really shouldn't have, in my opinion, but that's a whole nother story. But they're trying to make up those losses in money and tourism and so on and so forth. And now they're just kind of like, well, let's just try to get as much money as possible and just run with it. And we're not going to have a continuity in the visas. We're not going to try to actually help people come and retire there. There's going to be, people, digital nomads, DTV, visa holders, digital nomads. We're going to try to make it easy for them, because if they get to work and they're getting paid by some other country, we want them to live here, pay rent, groceries, hospital, all of that stuff. That will be a boom to the economy. And if we keep them here a long time, that will translate over into strong economic prosperity. But the problem is, for some reason, Thailand is just not thinking on all fours. It is putting out a bunch of conflicting information, and it is getting bad. So it used to be known as being a paradise, and a lot of people are finding the bureaucracy is getting crazy. It's expensive to navigate. Things that were cheap before are now expensive. You used to be able to get a beer for like 40 baht or $1.20 or something, $1.50. Now it's like, in some places, it's like 200 baht, so you're paying $4, $5, $6 for a beer. Rents have gone up dramatically. It is really, really interesting. And then there's more. So we're going to talk about that. The visa bureaucracy and all of the stuff that's going on. This is probably the worst thing that's happened for foreigners in Thailand, and specifically the United States, because it's characterized by frequent and poorly communicated changes. There's conflicting information. It's like, well, you say this, digital nomads come here and live here, but then the banking information is not matching up. Can't get a bank account or whatever. You can live here, but you can't because you need these forms, but you can't get this form unless you live here. Again, it's this weird squirrel cage rolling around that makes no logical sense. A lot of inconsistencies with the immigration offices within the country of Thailand. So that is kind of interesting. The days of easy back-to-back tourist visas, border jumping, and staying in Thailand that way, which is really a gray area. And I've talked about this in past videos where I said, and unfortunately it's come true when I looked into my crystal ball, countries are going to crack down on this type of immigration. If you have money and funds to live and retire or work in Thailand, then you should do so in that manner. But the problem is when you do the tourist visa for 90 days and then you dip over to another country for a day and you come back and you get another 90 days, I said that was going to get taken down. That was going to be a loophole that was going to be closed, not only for Thailand but other countries, and we're seeing it. And I hate being right. So, and this is a thing. This is a viable thing when we talk about, why these people are leaving and why it's important to have a backup plan. So if you put all your eggs in one basket and you said Thailand is the place to go, now people are finding out and they're stressing out. It's rough for them because now they're like, my whole life is here. But it's getting so confusing and conflicting, and the problems are getting even worse. Thai immigration has cracked down on visa runs or border runners and things like that for their short-term visas. Extensions now require more paperwork. You got to have proof of address, TM30 forms, bank statements, and these rules can be interpreted differently by each office or officer that's in immigration, which doesn't help. You can get different answers from the exact same immigration office depending on who you have as a clerk. which is, there's not a lot of continuity in that. And what works in Chiang Mai or what works in Phuket can be different from Bangkok. And all of those, there's no like, here's the list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, do these things, submit the paperwork, pay the money, boom, you're good to go. As long as you're there legally and you're not a criminal and you're not, you have the funds to do it, you should be able to stay. But instead, what Thailand has done is stirred the pot of confusion and chaos for trying to stay in Thailand, and it's like nobody's talking to each other. The immigration guys aren't talking to the banking people. The banking people aren't talking to, the visas that are doing for work visas. And the work visa people aren't talking about the retirement visa people who are staying there. And then the banks don't talk to any of them. And then the immigration office, the head immigration office says this, but the individual immigration offices interpret it differently. So it is getting really, really frustrating. So kind of similar to what we see in some countries in South America where the bureaucracy is just insane. And while the country is beautiful and while the people, the everyday people are great, just like we see in South America in some countries, the bureaucracy is insane. And so because of that, that's why people moved out of those countries. But here in Thailand, it's getting even worse. So, let me kind of clue you in on what goes on. For U.S. citizens, Westerners, there is no 90-day visa. But it's interesting because Koreans, Brazilians, and other countries can come to Thailand on a 90-day visa. That makes no sense. The United States is a powerhouse in the world, and yet Korea, people can stay 90 days, but people in the United States cannot. That doesn't make sense. Why would that be? And it all stemmed, I think, from what I can glean off of the interwebs and talking with people. It ends up that there are some problems with the short-term visa stays and people abusing the immigration and, being a tourist and then go to Cambodia and then come back to Thailand. They abuse that system, which Thailand didn't enforce the rules. So it's partly on them. I'm just saying. That's just my opinion. So you only get 30 days, and you can put in for an extension for another 30 days for a total of 60 days. But again, it's not a simple process anymore. The old days of Westerners getting a 60-day visa has long been gone, and it's not a thing. The other problem is conflicting information, and especially when you're looking at the DTV, the Digital Nomad Visa, the bureaucracy is legendary for its internal contradictions. Prime example is the new Digital Nomad Visa or Long-Term Resident Visa, the LTR, is marketed as a long-term solution for high-earning remote workers to stay in Thailand. The problem is these visa holders are being denied bank accounts. So yeah, come get your visa. Your visa can get approved. You can live in Thailand and enjoy everything that we have to offer, which is great. But yeah, you're not going to get a bank account. And there's the reason is given by major Thai banks is that these visas are not considered a work permit, and their internal policies haven't been updated to recognize them as a valid reason for opening an account. And again, there's varied information. What one Thai bank does and what another Thai bank does can be two totally different things. Some of them will say, even if you're not on a long-term visa, which you should be able to hold a bank account, if you have some other visa, foreigners are just being rejected to even opening accounts for no reason. Now, we kind of see something similar to that here in Korea. There are some banks in Korea that will not issue bank accounts to foreigners. And I talked about that in previous videos, and it's like it is what it is. You just need to go find another bank that will accept a foreigner. But when you have a digital nomad visa and a long-term visa holder that are authorized to enter the country legally, they welcome you with open arms, but you can't get a bank account. Crazy. So how is that foreigner who is authorized to live in Thailand, work in Thailand as a digital nomad or on a long-term visa, you can earn money, but you can't put it into a bank? Makes paying your rent and your utilities and buying food and medical and all the things, it makes it very hard to not have a bank. I mean, this is 2025 we're talking about. But yeah, you can't perform basic financial activities like receiving payments or paying rent easily within the country. I mean, what do you do now? Well, now you have to do like international bank transfers. Well, you don't have a Thailand bank account, so we can't do that. So now some people are resorting to using apps like Wise, which is a really great app, and they're transferring money from their U.S. bank accounts directly to the Thai landlord or other Thais, and trying to exchange money and trying to subvert the system so that they can survive and live and pay their debts. So it's weird. You can come live in Thailand, but we're not going to give you a bank account. How insane is that? Now, I could totally understand if this is, somebody who's overstayed their visa, they're border jumpers, they stay in Thailand for 60 days, and then they jump across the border and they come back and they get another 30 days and they do another 30-day extension, and they abuse that tourist visa as a means to stay in that country long term when it wasn't meant to. So, and I talked about this a long time ago. This was going to happen, where this crackdown was going to happen. It's happening here in Korea, it's happening in Thailand, it's happening in other countries. And unfortunately, Thailand is just like, it's crazy because there's a severe disconnect between the government, the main government in Thailand, and immigration and banking and this and that and the private sector. None of these people are talking to each other, and it's causing a lot of problems. And people are scratching their head and they're like, it shouldn't be this hard to live, especially when you're authorized and have an approved visa to live in Thailand. And so when you're faced with these problems of simple things that you should just be able to go to a bank, a local bank where your money is being deposited to pay your landlord, your rent, your utilities, and so on and so forth. You go get some money for a night on the town, whatever it is, and you can't do that. And you have to come up with creative ways to do that. And then there's the whole tax situation that Thailand brought up that had a lot of people just going crazy. It was like, wow, what the hell is going on? It's like the left hand isn't talking to the right, which isn't talking to the left foot, the right foot. Nobody's talking to each other. And so you have all these conflicting things. So yeah, there's a lot of financial hurdles. And then on top of that, the next thing is we're going to talk about these rising costs. It seems like every country is going through a little bit of a recession thing. I know we don't hear it, but it actually is. We're going through bad economies here in Korea. Japan is experiencing it, Thailand, Philippines, so on and so forth. And so these countries are, and of course, then there's the tariff wars that are going on. Some countries have accepted the tariffs of the United States to have equal trade, and they're kind of normalizing a little bit. But other countries that are not are, and some of them just ignore it. They accept the tariff deal, but they're still causing problems like Thailand is, and prices are going high. And it's all targeting foreigners for some strange reason, and we'll get into some other stuff. Bank accounts being closed. This is a huge economic problem because, and a financial hurdle, as we talked about, people's accounts that have visas to live in Thailand, their accounts are being closed, their accounts are being frozen, they have no access to their funds. And this happens when the banks conduct audits and they find out that usually what happens if you have an expired visa, now they're actually enforcing the rules and the laws and the policies. And yeah, it's like, oh, you don't hold a valid work permit? Boom, we're going to freeze and close your account. We're going to delete it. You're not going to have access to any of the money is in there. So what do you end up doing? So there's people that, I understand that. If you abuse the visa system, the tourist visa system, to try to stay long term, which they've allowed tourists to do for decades, unfortunately, now they're clamping down, but it's also spilling over into other people like we talked about. The digital nomad visa, it just seems like foreigners, but close, freeze account, it doesn't matter, LTR, DTV visa or whatever visa that they have. Foreigners across the realm are experiencing this. So it's not just like, it's just a tourist visa people that are doing border runs that are experiencing these frozen accounts. There's people that are the digital nomads that have work visas, that have long-term retirement visas, and others who are experiencing and saying, hey, I wanted to stay here the rest of my life, but they froze my account. That's unacceptable. So they're going to go somewhere else. So that's a reason why they're doing this. So it's a combination of them enforcing rules that they hadn't enforced before, and they're overreaching into other areas and other visas that weren't meant to be touched. One of the cool things about Thailand is that the baht in US dollar or the euro or the British pound, it was really a good exchange rate. And so in other words, your money would go further for like the US dollar to baht. And like I told you, it ends up that, a beer used to be like 20, 25 baht, 50 baht. Now it's like 200 baht, 250. So you're going from like $1.50 to $5-6 a beer. It used to be on an income of $1,500 a month, you could live really, really nice. Now with the increases of rents and all of these things, rents are going up, and so now $1,500 a month is not something that will give you a lot for your money when it comes to housing and rents and so on and so forth. Rising prices of rents, the hotel prices are going up. Some people have ended up saying that they've seen hotel prices jump 2 and 3 times. And it's the same thing with rents. It's like, what do you, in a matter of a few short years, it's taken this huge uptick for these things and the rising prices. And people are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I expect a little bit of increase, but something this drastic, and the government is not doing anything to minimize this. It's just like the government doesn't even know what they're doing. So why would they care about the rising rents and hotels and all of this stuff? It seems like because of the confusion that is in the government and immigration and all this, the Thai people are like, okay, well, we're going to raise our rates and we're going to try to get as much money as possible before everybody leaves. I don't know. It just seems like it. And I've talked and chatted with some people who have spent time in Thailand, some who are in Thailand, and they're like, yeah, they're raising the prices because influencers came to our country, showed how awesome it is, and then a bunch of people came over on the tourist visas, overstayed their visas or did the border runs, and then people started realizing, hey, we can charge more money, and so they started doing that, which is fine. There's that law of supply and demand in capitalism, but now it seems there's no limit. It's not like a slow, normal pace for the increase in the cost of living. It's just jumped up huge, massive leaps, and people are like, whoa, they're voting with their wallets, and they're leaving Thailand. So, and this not only affects the long-term visa holders, the retirees, and things like that. There's retirees that are getting their bank accounts frozen as well, so that's a problem. And then trying to fix those problems, that's another whole ball of wax. But with this, a lot of these people are saying, hey, it's pricing me out of this. But on top of that, tourism is taking a huge hit as well, because the people that have been expats and live in Thailand, the bloggers, the influencers, they're saying, hey, here's my budget for the month and what I paid for my utilities. And a lot of people are showing that what used to be low cost to live in Thailand has now become higher and higher and higher. And people are like, let's go to Cambodia, let's go to Philippines, let's go to some other country where, they don't have all these obstacles facing them just to live and live there legally. The other thing we end up seeing is, as with almost every other country, you're going to have a skin tax. Okay, if you're a foreigner, if I go to some foreign country, I'm 6'2", 260 pounds, I'm Caucasian, in case you hadn't noticed, and I have experienced things in South America and Panama where I get charged more than the locals. I get it. Even in Hawaii, kind of experienced that a little bit, big tourist spot. And I understand that. Even in Korea, close to the U.S. military bases, you'll experience higher prices closely around the U.S. military base in the stores, the fast food restaurants, and so on and so forth. Things that would, if you go away from those areas and you get into the local Korean economy, the restaurants that are a little bit further away, you can get a great meal for, $7, $10 or whatever. But to get a burger and fries right off post of a military base, you're going to be paying $15, $16, $17. And the burgers are small. So just like everywhere else, they're realizing, well, if we make a smaller food portion and raise the price of the food, we can make more money. It's kind of like what we're seeing in our grocery stores. You ever look at hot dogs? They used to be big, and then hamburger buns used to be about like this big, and then now they're like the size of a slider, and you're still paying more money for less product. People in Thailand and other countries are realizing this, and so especially in tourist areas, expat areas, they're raising their prices, and so that's problematic as well. So, and this will affect tourism, and the foreigner price can be anywhere from 2 to 5 to sometimes even 10 times more. There was a recent article that I read that there was a Thai lady, a Thai citizen, a lady, who had a business in Thailand, who lives in Thailand. She speaks Thai. She went to the hospital and she got a bill for, I think, 250,000 baht, whatever that comes out to be. And she's like, yeah, this is way too much. What the hell's going on? They charged her the foreigner rate. And then when she finally proved, I'm a Thai citizen, I have a business here, I'm born and raised, the whole 9 yards, then they brought that hospital bill down to 150,000 baht. So what's up with that? So not only is this affecting foreigners on tourist visas, work visas, and so on and so forth, it's even reaching out to its own citizens and causing problems. So it seems like there's a lot of greed going on. And that needs to be checked. And when greed is unchecked, there's going to be corruption. And when there's confusion, and like we see in the immigration and and the banking that's going on in Thailand, people are like, okay, immigration's bad. They're freezing bank accounts. I'm authorized to live here legally, but I can't get a bank account. They froze my account. I'm getting charged a skin tax 5, sometimes 10 times more than what the locals are paying. And I get it. You should, make a little bit of money. I understand that. I expect some skin tax, but it's getting out of hand. And people are counting up all these cons and they're saying, I don't see the reason to live here anymore. Living on the beach was great, but now it's not because of all these problems. So, yeah. And this is reaching out into the tourist area as well. So tuk-tuks, market vendors, some restaurants, while some expats can get Thai pricing by showing a work permit or a Thai driver's license, this sometimes it doesn't work. And so there's a lot more that are turning over and saying, well, you got brown hair, blue eyes, and you're 6 foot something, and you're white. Yeah, you're going to pay the skin tax. And then there's a bunch of scams that are going along in Thailand. So when the whole tax thing came up, had people tell me that, you have to pay tax. There were some scams on tax, government tax sites, and you had to pay money to get a stamp, and there was no stamp. And then there was some entry visa or something that comes with, getting into Thailand or whatever. And if you go online, it's free. But then you had these other websites that looked like Thai government websites, and they would charge you $100. That's crazy. The same thing happens here in Korea. We saw it even though my wife is Korean, we were warned about don't pay money for so-and-so. It should only be about 10,000 won, and you should pay that. And at 1530 or 1350 won to the dollar, 10,000 won is not much. But there are websites out there for signing up for the visa and whatever, all that stuff. Basically what they're doing is creating a middleman where you fill out the information, and on the government website in Korea, it's basically free. 10,000 won is the cost, but on these sites that look like they're official government sites, which are not, are charging $100. And it took a while for that to get nipped in the butt. So, and then there's the other thing that pops up. If that wasn't bad enough, now we're getting reports of defamation lawsuits by businesses against foreigners or people that leave bad reviews. In the Western country, what you can end up doing is you go to a restaurant or you go to a tourist area or, some place like that, and if you get bad service and, hey, the room had bed bugs and, the food was raw and this was that and, the laundry was bad, we didn't get what we paid for in regard to some services for, the hotel or the tour that I was doing. In the United States, it's okay to say that and just tell the truth. Thailand, on the other hand, there are Westerners who are being sued for defamation even though they're telling the truth, which is insane. That is absolutely insane. Now we got a question here, and it is CBGB. He says they do that in the U.S. too, the fake government websites. Yeah, they absolutely do. But the interesting thing with this on these, it's a criminal offense to leave a negative online review for a hotel, a restaurant, and a business owner can file a police report and you can get arrested. You can have your passport confiscated and you can serve jail time for leaving a bad review that is 100% factual. This is kind of an overreach that I think is only going to hurt tourism. It's only going to hurt the people that are going to be digital nomads or retirement visas for Thailand. It's like, hey, if, I get it, saving face, it's an Asian thing. I understand that, but there's some things where even if you tell the owner or the manager, hey, this is kind of messed up, there's bed bugs, there's this, and the food was rotten or whatever, you didn't give me the things that I paid for, the services or tours or whatever it is, snooty staff, and it's just, 100% factual. These businesses can file a criminal offense against you, and you can be stuck in Thailand, and you can go to court, and you can actually go to prison. So, this law ends up, a famous case, it was an American man who was jailed after posting a negative review of a resort in Koh Chang. This law creates a chilling effect, preventing people from warning others about generally bad or unsafe businesses. Again, imagine a business, if you're doing zip lining or, you're going out on a boat and the boat is decrepit and it breaks down or whatever, and there's safety violations that would make the OSHA, head explode. You can't warn anybody about that. And these businesses have taken this defamation thing that was, I think, intended originally for false accusations, and now anything that is negative is considered false, and you're doing harm to the reputation of the business, which overlooks the fact that what they said was true. And people don't want to face or deal with that. I don't. And then there was another scam that happened that I talked about a little bit. It was a digital arrival card scam where the government has repeatedly changed its entry requirements. So again, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. They introduced a Thailand pass, then an online TM6 arrival card, and they scrapped that. It's just very crazy. And then there are scammers who created the official looking websites, like I mentioned, like Korea, and they charge foreigners to fill out a free form that wasn't required at all, or it was free to begin with, and they're duped into paying for a useless service. So again, that leaves a bad taste in the mouths of a lot of Westerners and people. They're like, if the government can't, fix this, it's just another reason on a number of reasons on why people are leaving Thailand in droves. So faced with all of this, the visa uncertainty, no banking, some banking, no banking, whatever it is, rising costs, the bureaucracy of immigration offices will have different information depending on where you go and different requirements. It's just people are voting with their wallets, and they're like, I'm with their wallets and their feet is what it comes down to. Hack says, Thailand is really sketchy. I got stopped and searched randomly by police officers when I was doing absolutely nothing in the street under assumption that I was potentially dealing drugs. Complete BS. Yeah, wow, that's crazy. And he also says, I've seen many fake scammy visa pages for Vietnam too. Yeah, so there's something to be said. Vietnam is really inexpensive, and we're actually going to go to Vietnam this year. In September, we're going to Sapa, which is a big touristy place. So we're going to get our ducks in a row, and we've been warned about that. But yeah, it's always good to double check, trust, and verify. And thankfully for Koreans, a lot of Koreans go to Vietnam, and so they will tell you. You need to go here. You need to do this. Go to this website. This is a trusted website. And so they're very protective of their own kind, and they tell, they put it in blogs here in Korea and stuff like that and videos. So yeah, that's kind of a good thing. Vietnam is relatively inexpensive, and it's another option. I don't think they have a retirement visa. I don't think they do. I think they just have the tourist visa, and then people are still doing the border runs and stuff like that. Let me see if I can find does Vietnam have retirement visas for U.S. citizens or Westerners? I don't think they do, but we'll find out real quick. So, and while the prices are great, Vietnam is a huge coffee place, so I'm really looking forward to that. They've got some great countryside. That'll be really interesting to take a look at. And we're waiting for the search to come up. It ends up, no, Vietnam does not have a formal dedicated retirement visa for U.S. citizens or other foreigners in the way like the Philippines or Thailand. Well, people are leaving Thailand. No official immigration pathway where a foreigner can show proof of retirement income or savings to be granted a long-term multi-year stay visa without the need for regular renewals or border runs. So while retirement visa doesn't exist in Vietnam, there's other flexible visa options. So a 90-day e-visa rotation. Yeah, and you just kind of hop across the border, you get an extension, then you can come back and get another 90 days, in countries like going to Cambodia, Laos, or Thailand, and enter Vietnam for another 90 days. In other words, you're doing the border run. But a lot of countries are cracking down on this because so many people have been abusing it, but apparently Vietnam is not that. The pros of this is that it's pretty simple, it's cheap, it requires no proof of income, savings, or complex paperwork. But I'm going to look into my crystal ball, and as I look into it, eventually Vietnam's going to run into these problems where the abuse is going to be massive, and there's going to be a reaction to it. So they're going to have to put in some policies. You got to physically leave the country every 3 months, requires planning, all of that stuff. I've seen a lot of this. There is a 5-year visa exemption certificate, but it's only specific for a specific group of people. So people or foreigners who are married to Vietnamese citizens or the children of citizens, you can get a visa or a certificate that is valid for 5 years. It's a great way to do it, but doesn't really do anything for me because I'm married to a Korean, somebody with Korean ancestry. Then there's the business and investor visa, but that requires a lot of money that you need to deposit. So yeah, common long stay visa for that 90-day e-visa run says that there's a proof of income for an OA visa, which is $2,000 a month, but it's just kind of crazy. So Vietnam is going to be an interesting little place there. Let's see, we've got some other comments here. Hack ends up saying, I feel like south of France, Italy, Spain are top tier choices for retirees if outside of Asia. I would throw, countries like that, Portugal, things of that nature, those are definitely some places. The only thing that bothers me about Spain and countries like that is those that had a high influx of refugees from Middle Eastern countries. I'm just calling it like it is, and not there's a difference between a refugee who gets put into a country that doesn't want to be in that country, that hasn't, I'm all for legal immigration. My family came from Europe and came to the United States, and they said, yeah, we're giving up our citizenship of X country X, Y, and Z, and we're coming over here to the United States to be Americans, the melting pot of the world, yay, all of that. But they gave up their citizenship and their way of life to assimilate into the United States. And unfortunately, from what we see on a large scale, is a lot of refugees don't do that. And so with refugees, you also don't get background checks. So you don't know who you're getting with a bunch of refugees. And a number of countries overseas in Europe are experiencing this where their crime rates have skyrocketed. So there's that consideration there. But yeah, I think it'd be kind of cool to go to Italy or Spain or places like that to go visit. Hack says, it doesn't seem sustainable to border hop if you are a retiree and just want to be on autopilot or cruise control. I 100% agree. So everybody give Hack a 2 thumbs up because he nailed it. Westerners that want to retire in another country, they don't want bureaucracy. I don't want it. I thought there would be way more of that here in Korea, but surprisingly, not so. And I did my homework and it was like, okay, but there's got to be a little bit. But actually, it's been fairly easy. So, matter of fact, our visas are coming up for renewal. They're up for renewal here pretty soon. So we got to get some paperwork. Usually that requires going to a city office and getting your entry and exit certificate of showing, how many times you've come to Korea and left Korea and come back and whatever. And then we'll have our Korean registration card or passport. We fill out some forms, boom. I can't remember how much it is to pay. We turn that in. If I haven't become a mass murderer or haven't done anything bad, boom, pretty much guaranteed it's going to get approved. And so I'll get another 2 years. My wife will do hers. She gets 3 years. So, and we're married. We've been married for 35 years. So I don't understand why there's this difference. She's a returning Korean national on an F4 visa. I'm on an F1 visa as her spouse. I get 2 years. Initially, I had 1 year, and then she had 2, and then she was able to get hers knocked up to 3 years. Now I can get 2. I don't know. We're going to ask and see if I can get 3 years to see what happens, because we've been here 2.5 years now. But yeah, absolutely. It does not make sense because retirees, they want to settle down. They don't want the bureaucracy. They want to be able to pay the rent, have bank accounts. They just want to live and enjoy their retirement years, which requires spending money, paying rent, paying utilities, which is good for the economy of the foreign country that they're in. But it seems like Thailand doesn't get that. So they're trying to stir this pot of confusion and make it even more confusing. And a lot of Westerners are like, you know what? I'm out. Audi 5000. I'm out of here. Hack ends up saying that illegal immigration is mainly in big cities, I feel, but it is definitely a concern. Yeah, and that's a concern that I had. That was one of the reasons why Mexico was on my list for retirement, but because of my time in the military and doing some stuff in South America and seeing the problems with cartels and so on and so forth, and that there was no government oversight in that. Kind of had some bigwigs in the intel community who were like, hey, I know you're talking about maybe retiring in Mexico. Don't, because it's only going to get worse over time. And sure enough, they were right. And so they called it 100%. So it's like, somebody give you a winning lotto ticket number, you're going to go buy that lotto ticket and you're going to take it. So when they whatever they end up saying in regards to Mexico or other countries to be careful of going, thankfully I've met these people online who are also prior military, and yeah, they've been able to, kind of steer me in the right direction and say, hey, consider this, look at this, look at this. They don't tell me what to do, but they give me enough information to say, if it was me, I wouldn't do it, but here's the information and take a look, and you make an informed decision. I still came up with all that. So, let's see. Thailand is losing the plot. Yeah, it's just not going. CBGB says, your wife is Korean national and only gets a 3-year visa. Well, she's not a Korean national. There's a little story behind that. She was born and raised in Korea. She was a Korean citizen. We got married. She got her green card. Eventually, she became an American citizen. So then we found out, we're interested about overseas retirement. And then we found out that Korea has a visa for returning Koreans or people with Korean descent. And boom, we're able to get her that visa. So as an American citizen, she can still, that's why she has a 3-year visa. If she was a Korean national, she wouldn't need any visa whatsoever. Now, the good thing is when she hits age 65, currently, this could all change, she can get dual citizenship for Korea and the United States, she wouldn't need a visa at all. So we're kind of shooting for that. There has been talk in Korea in the past before the president and the impeachment here in Korea and then the elections. But these discussions have been going on for some time of how they want to lower that to allow people, instead of being 65, lower it to 60, maybe even 55 years old. So Koreans with Korean ancestry or returning Koreans would be able to get that dual citizenship and they could be free to come and live in Korea. So they're trying to do that, which I think is a good thing. I think that is a good, wise thing to do, not just because we would get some benefit from it, but even if we didn't, I still think that would be a good idea. Panama or El Salvador? Panama. And yeah, that was fun. Long-time viewer. Greetings, Steve. I just extended my F6 visa and the fee was 30,000 Korean won. Yeah, that's not much. So for those of you who are wondering, 30,000 Korean won divided by about 1350-ish ends up being $22. So, boom. Booyah. That is not bad. I think our visa renewal is it's minimal as well. So, some countries, their renewal fees are more expensive. Korea, thankfully, is very low on the list. I don't know how much mine is or the wife's because it's been a minute. But when we do that, I'll let people know, and it's probably going to be insignificant. So, eligibility for Korean dual citizens starts at age 65. Yes, exactly true. That's what I ended up finding out through our immigration lawyer. But yeah, there are some talks about, and I haven't seen anything recently saying that they're going to continue looking at lowering that age. But if they do, I'll definitely let people know. Hack ends up saying, have you visited Australia? No, I have not. I have never been to Australia, but I think it would be kind of cool to go. And maybe that will be, I don't know. I would like to. I think that would be kind of cool. We're going to hit Vietnam. We're going to hit Philippines. We're going to go back to Thailand. I want to go to Chiang Mai, Australia. I would be open to doing that. I think that would be cool. Again, price would have to come into play and see if I can get a good deal. Everything's about getting a good deal, right? But if you have any suggestions for Australia and what, something that wouldn't break the bank for, where to go and spend some time in Australia, I'd be more than happy to, shoot me an email and let me know about that stuff or put it in the comment section. But yeah, that would be cool. I think that would be cool. Another place I would like to go is New Zealand. I think, and the only reason I'd want to go to New Zealand is because Lord of the Rings was filmed there. And so I'm kind of a Tolkien fan. So yeah, I'd like to see that, and I think that would be kind of cool. But yeah, that's what we got going on. So there's a lot of other countries in the world where people are leaving Thailand in droves, and they're voting with their feet and their wallets, and they're saying, we're not going to put up with this anymore. And so people are looking for other alternatives. One of those that we talked about is Vietnam. And while they don't have a visa, retirement visa per se, they do have the 90-day visa, and you just do a border run. So maybe it's kind of a good, stay there for a month, 2, 3 months, get really deep into Vietnam and spend some time there, make some memories, and then hop back to whatever country that you're going to be your hub, which ours is Korea. So really looking forward to Vietnam and the coffee and stuff like that. Hack says, a little trip for the Shire for Steve. Yes, that would be really cool. That would be, try to find the one ring. That would be cool. CB says, New Zealand is good to avoid the rough Korean summer. Yes, Korean summers. It is getting so hot and humid here, and the weather has gotten hot sooner than it has in any other time that we've been here, so it's very concerning. And like today, it was like, yesterday it got up to 103 when we were driving around in our car, and then today it was like 99 degrees. And it's just like, okay, go to the gym, work out, leave, and come home to the air conditioner. That's our thing. There's no AC, I'm not going anywhere. But besides Vietnam, and there's talks about Vietnam doing a retirement visa, but we haven't seen anything of yet. I think if Vietnam does retirement visa, they need to get on the ball. There needs to be some continuity. There needs to be some clear-cut rules to do the opposite of what Thailand is doing. In other words, you have good immigration visas, you have easy paperwork, you have an income requirement that, obviously, people will be able to stay in Vietnam for a long time and spend money and help the economy. Easy renewals. Definitely let people be able, expats be able to get bank accounts in Vietnam. Yeah, I don't think they can buy property because it's still a communist country. I think it is. So yeah, there's that. But you can do rentals, and I don't know if you can purchase condos or stuff in Vietnam. Personally, I wouldn't do that unless they had a long-term retirement visa, but even then, I would be hesitant. I would just rent. But that's just me. So there's that. Another place is Malaysia. We've talked about that before. Hack says, you think Thailand is penalizing folks because they were too popular and it impacted the locals negatively? Maybe. If you have places like Pattaya, and then there's no special activities tourism, we all know what we're talking about here, where there's eggs and you pay money for eggs, and Germany has something like 400,000 or 600,000 people that go to Thailand for eggs. And yeah, that's just Germany, which is crazy. And imagine all of the other countries that come to Thailand for eggs. Laying eggplants everywhere and doing all, we know what we're talking about, right? We know what we're talking about. And so there's that. So, is it being penalized because it's too popular and it's impacting the locals negatively? Anytime there's eggs tourism, that is going to have a negative effect on the populace. So I think that's absolutely true. And especially when it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, that negative impact is going to have far-reaching effects. And if it was me in my country, that wouldn't make me feel good as a citizen to see so many people, for the sole reason of coming over is to get eggs. That would be bad. Thailand appears to be actively attracting high-value tourists. You would think so, but with their digital nomad visa, they have some pretty high income requirements for that. In other words, you're being paid by a company and you get to live in Thailand. Long-term, the LTR visas, the long-term visas. But people can't get bank accounts. So even though those are high-value tourists or even visa holders, these people are not being able to have a bank account. So, and it's carrying over into other visas as well. Just because you're a foreigner, you might not be able to get a bank account. Or just because you're a foreigner, whatever the reason, doesn't matter what visas you have, there's reports of foreigners having their bank accounts frozen. So, from the people I've talked with and the information that I've seen, I I don't know, maybe they're looking like Malaysia. With the Malaysia My Second Home visa, Malaysia proper, it used to be like $1,500 or $1,200 a month income requirement. And then, I had talked about this in a previous video a while back, it was a little while back, that they increased the income from like $1,200 a month to almost $8,000 a month. And I think Malaysia was thinking, hey, we want to get a big chunk of the pie, so we're going to get people that make $8,000 or $9,000. And they thought it was going to roll out, and they thought all of these people that have tons of money are going to come to Malaysia to retire and have a second home. And they didn't. They built up this idea, and it's like you cut off your nose to spite your face, or whatever that saying is. And you have a lot of people that have $1,200 a month, or $1,500 a month, or $2,000 a month. Average, everyday working people who can retire, and the income retirements are good. They don't get in trouble. Like they said, they just want to settle down. They want to get into the routine. They want to enjoy the country, low crime, the whole nine yards. And they pay their rents and everything. They're not troublemakers. They have good background checks. And then Malaysia ended up like saying, hey, yeah, we're gonna, thankfully, people were grandfathered in who were already there. But it's a scary thought because they didn't have to. But then they rolled this out thinking they're going to get a bunch of high rollers and make a ton of money off of people that are going to have an income of $8,000 to $10,000 a month, and they didn't. So now they're scratching their heads and they're like, I wonder why that didn't work. Crazy. But then there's another part of Malaysia that ended up, and I forget the name. I keep forgetting the name. So you have the federal Malaysia My Second Home income requirements, but then you have individual states in Malaysia, and this one state has kept their income requirements low. So basically what people ended up doing is leaving this one that went up to $8,000 or $9,000 a month, and they instead went with this one there, which allows them to stay long term in Malaysia, and they can actually go to the other place in Malaysia and stay there. So there's a loophole there, but I think they got too greedy. And they're putting these things out there, and they're like, no, you have to look at the average payment for Social Security. What is the average payment? And maybe make it like in Korea for what is it, the F513 visa. If you don't speak the Korean language, it's twice the GNI of Korea, which comes out to about $72,000 depending on conversion. And if you have that, then you can get that F513 visa, and you don't have to do a language proficiency test. If you do read, write, and speak Korean like a native, you can do that, but only have to make an income of one time the GNI of Korea, according to our immigration lawyer. So if it's wrong, it's all on her. But yeah, it's kind of crazy on countries that are thinking that, well, they're going to make a ton of money when you're just, they want the high rollers, and they're forgetting that you get one high roller, they're going to pay one rent. They're going to buy one car. They're going to, do one gas bill, one water bill, one TV, one internet bill. And then a lot of other people that they basically forced out or were considering Malaysia, they forgot all of these people that make $1,500 to $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month off of retirements in Social Security, and they're like, we don't want you. Well, they still need to pay rent, utilities, internet, food, all of those things, and you just slashed all of that money out. So you cut your profits, and they're kind of wondering why. And it's like, it just amazes me that some of these countries just don't understand what they're doing. It's I just don't get it. Hack says Phuket was suffering from mass Russian expats. That is true. It was like Little Russia in Phuket. And I chatted with a guy that was down there, and he says, yeah, it was like going to Russia. There was so many Russian people down there, and of course that was the Ukraine war and all of that, and a bunch of Russians that didn't want to fight, they left, and they lived, down in Thailand and stuff like that, which I personally wouldn't, if I was king for a day in Thailand, I wouldn't allow that to happen. because they abused that, and it was bad for tourism, and there was crimes that kind of criminal element that came along with that, and even here in Korea we experienced that. There is what is it, Asan Technical Valley. We had some friends of ours that tried to open a bank account. Again, an American husband, white Caucasian guy, tall like me, and his Korean wife. She looks Korean, whatever. She's an American citizen, but returned on a Korean visa. And they went to a Korean bank, and the bank wouldn't let them open a bank account because they had such bad experiences with a lot of Russians that came and would abuse the banking and not pay or this or that. And so it just ended up being a ton of problems. And so they were just like, they washed their hands, and individual banks are more like individual franchises. And so the bank just said, hey, we're not going to deal with this anymore because it's cutting into our profits and we're losing money. So we're just not going to have any foreign bank accounts. So some people have had success with those type of banks and saying, listen, we're retired here. We have this amount of money. Can we put money into a savings account or like a CD or an interest-bearing account and lock that in? Can we get this bank because it's close to where we live? It's the walkability is good. Some people have had success in doing that. Others, it's just like, nope, that's the way it is. And it's like you can respond in that one of two ways. One way you can get pissed off and damn it, damn Koreans and go to banking is terrible, blah blah blah. Or the second way, which I prefer, is like, oh, okay, well, I totally get it. I understand. Do you have any banks that you would recommend that we could go to? Again, vinegar or honey, which one are you going to go? Honey is usually a little bit better. And you have to realize that the people that work in the banks that you're interacting with, they don't set the policy. They have to follow the policy. So if they say you can't do a certain thing, don't get mad at them. Don't be the ugly American. So, yeah, it ends up. Let's see. But, yeah, there was a lot of Russians that came, and they ruined it for other foreigners because they abused that bank. Just kind of crazy. Putting large sums of money in a SEA foreign bank and buying property is risky business. It could be. It could be. Buying property, and it depends. Again, there's always risk when you buy property. Here in Korea, we did some really good due diligence. I'd done real estate investing and rehabbing in the United States, so I could see trends and so on and so forth, and things to look for. Probably more so than the average person. So we're pretty happy with the purchase of buying property, and I still think that buying property in Korea is good if you can get it at a discount. You got to get it at a discount. You got to get it at a discount. You can't buy full retail price. That's not negotiable. But anything is risky. It could be that, we bought the apartment, everything's great, we're living our best life now, enjoying talking to you folks and having a good time. And then something can change, like the immigration laws. And boom, we could be gone. We would have to rent the property out. So if the property that we owned is not in a good rental area, that could be problematic. And yes, there is risk in that. And just look at Thailand. A number of years ago, people buying condos in Thailand, oh, it's a great investment. You can rent it out and Airbnb the whole 9 yards. Well, now, because of the immigration and the bureaucracy problems that is in Thailand and what's popping up now, people are like, yeah, I don't want to Airbnb because I don't want to go to Thailand. I don't want to experience all these. Why would I spend $6 and $7 for a beer when I can go to another country that is just as beautiful or more where it's cheaper? And I don't have all this immigration craziness or, trying to retire there and they make it so hard, or even just having a work visa. They, if they can't get a bank account, why? I'm not going to put up with that. What was that the video? Ain't nobody got time for that. Yeah, crazy stuff. But there's always risk. So that's absolutely true. Even in the United States, and there's risk in that as well. Hack says, who did you end up banking with in your case? How are the fees and services? I've heard Hyundai have credit cards over there. Excuse me. Yeah, we went in with NH Bank. That's where we got our bank account. It's a bank that's close to where we live, so it's walkable. And what's funny is that with NH Bank is that even though there's other branches of NH Bank, it ends up that they don't talk to each other. Yeah, it's weird. So, for example, a while back, what we ended up doing is we needed some money. We went to the city office to get an official document of entry and exit in Korea. And it was like, a few thousand won or 5,000 won, whatever it was. But we didn't have the money. So the wife saw an NH Bank branch. So I pulled in, she goes in and she checks, and it's like, hey, we've got an account. And they're like, yeah, we can't access your account. And it's like, well, I have an account. Here's my bank card. Here's this and that. And she said, oh, no, that's only good for that branch. So they don't talk to each other. So I can't just go to any NH branch and get money, at least in the case that we experienced. So, yeah, it's more like an individual franchise with banking. So that was kind of odd. But, yeah, really, really interesting on that. So that was the bank that we ended up with, was Nyonghup Bank. And the fees and services, pretty much, we just deposit money in there. There's not really fees and services. Of course, we put some money in there and they make some money off of the money that we put in there. And yeah, so and we get a bank card. We do a debit card. And what we'll end up doing is taking money out of the Navy Federal Credit Union Bank that we have access to on the military base. We take that and then we go to a money exchange store to get a better exchange rate on our US dollars to Korean won, and then we'll take that and deposit it into the Korean bank because their exchange rates are not as good, and it's totally legal. So there's that. That's what we ended up doing. Steve, hey, your plan B of relocating to Thailand requires revision. Absolutely, and that's another reason why I was doing this video, is to take a look and say, hey, you need to have a plan B. And there's so many people that we see online and in videos and horror stories of people that go to a country and for whatever reason, they have to leave and they don't have a plan B. Some of them don't even have a plan to go back to the United States, and they can't go back to the United States because they can't afford to live in the United States. So now there's this quandary, this conundrum that they face of, where am I going to go? And it would be better to have that information now and say, okay, well, Thailand, we were thinking about that. Going to Chiang Mai, not so much anymore. So yes, absolutely. Somebody who pays attention, gold star for you. But yeah, now another consideration is possibly the Philippines because their income requirements are low. I don't like hot, tropical, humid weather, but you can always go to Baguio or whatever. But assisted living as we get older, definitely a lot cheaper than what it is here in Korea. So that was my plan C. So it was either going to be Thailand or Philippines. But Thailand is out of the mix now with all this craziness. And so now we're going to be looking at Philippines. So yeah, definitely revision. And things change. Things change. Even though we don't want them to change, things change. We change. Immigration changes. Korea changes. But what makes things better is if you're debt free, and that takes some preparation beforehand. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Very interesting, especially with the government that we have here in Korea. Kind of interesting to see what we're going to run into as far as immigration and visas and all that stuff. Right now, I'm not concerned. Right now. But I'm always keeping an eye out on what's going on with the current political administration that's in office. Could cause some problems or might fix some things. I don't know. The jury's still out on that. We have a Korean president that wants to give a bunch of money away and boost the economy, but it's like one-time payments, 150,000 won. Ooh, that's not going to help the economy long term. So yeah, it's kind of a thing there. Hack ends up saying, debt-free and pension are massive unlocks. Oh, yes, absolutely. If you're debt-free and you have pensions and basically you have a ticket to go wherever you want. Granted, there might be some concessions that you need to make and some compromises, but when you're not locked down or imprisoned by debt, that gives you more freedom. So yes, absolutely, that's totally a thing. Massive unlocks. So gold star for that, Mr. Hack. We end up now. Thailand still offers vibrant culture and a beautiful environment, but for many long-term residents, the friction of rising costs, shifting regulations. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. And I'm amazed at how many YouTubers are talking about that. And then they're like, hey, this is getting out of hand. And it went from everybody, let's go to Thailand and let's live in Thailand and do this, and now digital visa, long-term visa, things were going well, and then it just kind of upended itself, kind of like what happened in Malaysia with their income requirements. But it seems like there's all types of confusion. So before, you would have people that would say, oh, well, this city used to be really good for expats, and then it got overcrowded, and so now people would move to another part of Thailand and say, oh, well, this is a good place. And then that would be overrun, and then they would go to some other place. Well, now it's getting to the point of where Thailand as a whole is really putting a lot of frustration on retirees and even tourism, that people don't want to put up with that crap. So, yeah, especially if you can get sued for leaving a truthful review, that just is insane. Yeah. Let's see. CB says, I use Schwab to withdraw cash from my convenience store in Japan and have to walk down the block to a Japanese bank to fund my account. Yeah, that's kind of good. So we're kind of the same in that aspect. A little extra step that you have to do, but it's not that bad. I know some people I was chatting with, they're like, how can you do that month in and month out? And it's like, we get a better exchange rate, so that kind of fuels it. It's like, it's okay because I get a better deal on my money. Will it get old someday? Maybe it will. I don't know. We'll see. But I could, as I did a video on your Social Security, your military pension, and your VA disability, all can be deposited into foreign bank accounts. So if I ever get really, really tired, the exchange rate won't be as good, but that is another option. And again, if it gets to the place where I'm really old and I just don't want to walk down the street or go on post and exchange money because I'm old and tired or whatever, I might end up doing that. But at least there's that option to do so. So, yeah. Heck says, what about Cambodia? Interesting. I've been looking into Cambodia, Vietnam, and things like that. Cambodia is interesting, but it's such, I don't want to call it a third world country, but the infrastructure is not really there. And I haven't dived deep into research on Cambodia, but as we get older, you definitely want low crime. You definitely want good medical services, low cost of living, which Cambodia definitely has. So, I'm still looking at that. That's a possibility, and definitely your money goes further. So but honestly, I haven't dug deep enough into Cambodia. So if you got some information on that, Hack, that'd be good to see. Now you got me thinking. I'm gonna have to look into that. Indeed, the defamation laws in Thailand are quite stringent. This is absolutely true. If you can get dinged and get arrested for leaving a negative review on a business, and don't even talk about the royalty. That can get you in trouble as well. I was like, wow. How many of us in U.S. citizens, we talk about presidents and senators and politicians, and it's like, the hell with them or whatever. We can voice our opinion because we have that freedom of speech. There's people that have problems. Don't talk against the royal family in Thailand. Don't. So I'm not. Not that I have anything to complain about with them. So, yeah. But even in Korea, for those people that don't know, there's defamation laws in Korea that if you kind of similar, but it's just not being enforced. But if you defame somebody's reputation or a business reputation and it doesn't get blown out of proportion here in Korea, I think that's because a lot of Koreans like to save face. And, instead of making a big scene, instead of being a Karen and yelling and screaming in a Korean business, how dare you, you didn't bring my fried rice and it was cold, or the side dishes weren't as, whatever BS complaint that they have. Instead of doing that, it's like, I noticed, I didn't get this. Is it, is that still coming? Just kind of wondering, don't mean to interrupt. Let them save face, because the people that are there working are there working. So you got to give them some respect. So again, honey goes a lot farther than vinegar. So that. CB says you can have Social Security Administration deposited in a Japanese bank, but they charge for incoming deposits. Yes. And that is what you'll end up seeing on the Social Security webpage, is that they will say, yes, we can do international direct deposits to foreign banks, and they've got a whole list of them. Even countries that you would think shouldn't be on that list are on that list, and you're like, wow, that's crazy. But then there's so much Social Security fraud going on, makes you wonder about how all that came to pass and why that's happening. That's a whole nother conspiracy video. We're not going to talk about that. But yeah, that is one thing that the Social Security Administration, and also the VA and DFAS that talks about, I think they talk about the same thing, of saying, hey, you might incur some extra fees in doing that. So there are people that I know that use the app Wise to transfer from their U.S. bank to foreign banks, and the transfer fees are a little bit less. So that might be something to look into. I don't know if that applies for you, but that would be interesting to take a look at that. And more, I look at the interest rates of Wise, and I do have a Wise account. I just haven't used it because, we have our bank on post, and that is easily accessible. But what happens if for some reason, they say, military retirees can't go on post anymore? I need to have a backup plan. So yeah, you got to have a backup plan. So yeah, that would be an interesting little thing. But, excuse me, wow. For some reason, whenever I have lemonade, I always get a throat like this. But I love it. I have strawberry lemonade. That's what I'm drinking here. Non-alcoholic, so that's not a problem for me. But yeah, to kind of close up this video, what we end up seeing is a lot of places are looking for other places besides Thailand. And that's why it's so important to have a plan B. And like it was pointed out, hey, my plan B, Thailand, now I need to change that. But yeah, other places, Cambodia, Malaysia, Philippines is extremely low cost. The official language there, they do, of course, their native languages, but English is a language that is widely taught in the Philippines. So that is another thing. But yeah, I don't know. That would be kind of interesting. Another question that we end up getting is, what are your thoughts on South Africa as plan B? Probably not. Yeah, probably not a good plan B. Yeah, the things that are going on there, and with, if I'm not mistaken, there's a lot of killing and deaths and not good things. So yeah, that's not even on my list of a place to visit. So yeah, it's definitely not a plan B for an alternative to retirement if I have to leave Korea. Honestly, it would probably be the Philippines. If let's say the Philippines isn't there, what would be another one? I don't know. That would be very interesting. I don't know after that. After Philippines, maybe some European countries, maybe Portugal or something like that. Something that definitely has a low crime rate, that doesn't have a lot of refugees, low income, requirements, easy visa, no bureaucracy, crazy stuff going on. But maybe it would be something in Europe. So, but I'm really hesitant about a lot of places in Europe just because of the problems that we've had in the past or they've had in the past with refugees, and those problems are not going away. So, yeah. South Africa's not safe? No. Maybe if I got a tan, a real dark tan, I would be okay. But yeah, probably not a good thing. And another thing to take a look at is the crime stats. So if you go to numbeo.com, Numbeo or BO, it'll do comparison of living expenses and all that stuff. You can also look at crime rates and things like that to kind of give you an insight to what's going on in some of these countries and see if it's acceptable. Because you're going to want to have low income requirements. You're going to want your money to go further. You're going to want to have good medical. You want low crime. All of those. You want the best of everything. Seriously, that's what we all want. Taiwan. Haven't considered Taiwan. Interesting. Do a quick cursory search and we'll see if Taiwan has retirement visas. I don't know. Maybe. But then that whole Taiwan-China thing, I don't know. And honestly, I haven't looked at real estate or anything for Taiwan. Retirement, let's see if anything pops up on this. But definitely, I like the Philippines because English is widely spoken there, and we'll see how that goes. So, Taiwan does not have a dedicated retirement visa in the same way like Thailand or Philippines. You can't simply show your pension or whatever. They're trying to attract foreign talent and capital in some of these pathways, but they don't have it right now. They have a Taiwan employment gold card. That sounds expensive. And it's typically valid for 1 to 3 years. It's renewable. Highly skilled professionals or experts in certain fields, so that puts me out of the race there. The retirement angle. You're not allowed to be employed by a Taiwanese company to hold it. A retiree who had a high-paying career can qualify based on their past professional experience or salary. So, for example, under the economy category, it says having a past monthly salary of approximately 5,000 US, a retiree can prove that they earned this in a previous job, can qualify for the gold card in Taiwan. So then there's investment capital, which requires a minimum investment of 200K. Yeah, probably wouldn't. Yeah, not going to do that. Visa runs, 90-day visas, go somewhere else, come back. It's not a long-term viable solution. So I don't know. I think there's going to be countries that are going to look at this and see that they're going to lose money or they're not making money, and if they can offer retirement visas that are not convoluted as what we're seeing with Thailand right now, that might open up other countries. And some country, they're going to screw it up, and other countries are going to say, we'll jump in and we'll provide retirement destinations for people to get that income into their country. I mean, that's like a no-brainer. You have the baby boomers, you have, me, I'm like going to be 59 here pretty soon, and people that are retired, 50 to 65, 70 or whatever. Other countries need to jump on that because they're going to lose out on a lot of money, and it's better to strike while the iron is hot because the following generations is smaller in number. So better to do that now and strike while it's hot. The question is Guam. Guam is expensive. It's an island, kind of like Oahu. Very expensive, not worth it. I don't know. Does Guam have a retirement visa? I mean, we lived on Oahu for a year before we came to Korea. Have a retirement. but it was just so expensive in Oahu. It was just like, and I figured Guam would be the same thing. And then the other thing that bothers me about Guam is that it's so small, and you have a tsunami, and then Guam would be gone. And I would be a little nervous being on Guam. I don't know. Maybe. Let's see what we end up getting here. No, Guam does not have a retirement visa for U.S. citizens because it's not necessary. It's part of the United States, so a U.S. citizen has a right to live, work, and retire in Guam just as they would in any other state. Interesting. Yeah, that's right. Interesting. Guam, retiring in Guam for a U.S. citizen. You can own property, right to work, right to reside. Currency is the U.S. dollar, so that's good. Banking, they use American banking systems. They're FDIC insured. Social Security, Medicare, of course, those are fully applicable in Guam. Taxes, has its own tax authority. And interesting pros and cons. Zero visa hassle, which is nice. No bureaucracy because we just dip on over there. Stability and security. You're on U.S. soil. Protection by U.S. law. U.S. dollar and familiar banking systems. Healthcare access. U.S. Naval Hospital. No language barrier. The cons are high cost of living is the number one drawback for Guam. Kind of like with Hawaii and places like that. Nearly everything has to be shipped to the island, so there's going to be a premium for groceries and utilities and so on and so forth. And then it talks about island fever, which some people go and move to Oahu. And I've talked to people that were there when we lived there for a year, and they're like, yeah, I thought I'd live here for the rest of my life, and talk to some retirees, and they're like, I can't handle it. Hawaii has got to go. It is too small. They can't handle living on Oahu. And it was like, I would happily live on Oahu. Granted, it gets a little hot, but I wouldn't have a problem with it. I didn't have a problem with it for a year. I thought, settled down, and we had our favorite beaches and Kailua Beach and so on and so forth. I didn't have any problems whatsoever. I could probably still do my hobbies, but it was just too darn expensive. And that was, for housing, was the biggest one. So, yeah, crazy. Here it is. Guam is located in Typhoon Alley and is regularly hit by powerful storms. Buildings are constructed to high standards, but again, there is a huge disruption in services when these typhoons go through. Healthcare is good, but if you need highly specialized procedures, a flight to Hawaii or the mainland is what you'll need to do. So, interesting. Guam. And Guam is worse than Oahu. Really? Wow. That would be crazy. Singapore as an option. I've never checked into Singapore. So that would be a thing. Let's see. Retirement visa. Singapore. Of course, if I spell it right, it would probably help a little bit more. But Singapore, I've never looked into Singapore, so that's kind of this is all kinds of cool stuff we're going to check out. CB says Singapore is good, but not cheap. Indonesia. we're just throwing out every country in the book, and we're going to check that out and see. I don't think we'll get to the bottom of this. You'll just keep throwing countries at me, and I don't know. Maybe Malaysia, with the My Malaysia Second Home in that one state that has a lower income requirements than the main federal Malaysia. Let's see what we end up seeing here for Singapore. Generally, let's see if I can get to the top. Blah, 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 blah. No, Singapore does not have a dedicated requirement visa, and the government is not trying to attract passive retirees. Instead, its policy is laser focused on high-value individuals that can contribute to its economy. Ultra-high net worth investors, top-tier global talent, entrepreneurs, so on and so forth. So, ultra-wealthy route, golden visa type stuff. The options are, you want to hear this? Approximately 7.4 million in a new or existing business entity, approximately 18.5 million in a GIP selected fund that invests in Singapore-based companies. Wow. Extremely high level of capital is required. So yeah, we can automatically cross that off. Might be a nice place to visit, but probably not to retire. Singapore, imagine that. Yeah, definitely not cheap. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, definitely worth. Probably a good question to be to ask is what countries offer retirement visas with low income requirements? requirements. Yes. Spelling, gotta keep spelling. Like 3,000 USD a month. So maybe we can consolidate instead of trying to go through every country on the map. We can kind of just narrow this down to a list of countries, and then we can go through those, and it'll give me something to look at. CB says, after living in Vegas, I want to retire to McMurdo Station, but no retirement visa. And that's another interesting thing. There are military bases that have on-base housing that will rent to retirees. It's a little bit more than what I would want to pay, but you would be on a military base, so it's relatively secure, low crime. You have the PX commissary and all of those things. That would definitely be an option. But the rent prices on some of those are really expensive. And actually, we looked into that when we were on Oahu, because there are retirees that rent on the military base, but it's expensive. It's still expensive there. So yeah, that was like it. Plan B. Go where you are treated the best. Yep, that's probably it. So let's take a look-see on what we end up seeing. Panama. So we're talking about South America. So there's Panama that has income requirement of $1,000 per month or $1,250 per couple. Ecuador, Colombia, those are again about $1,000. Ecuador is $460 a month. The lowest cost of living in the Americas, but that Colombia is $1,000. Mexico is off the table. You got to have an income of $2,700 to $3,200 or more. That's off the table. Europe, you're looking at Portugal. That's about $820 or $880 a month passive income for a single applicant. D7 is the most popular retirement visa in Europe. Path to residency and EU citizenship. Mild climate, coastline. Portugal might want to get into that. Check that out. That could be an option. Famous for all of those things. Spain is another one. Theirs is $2,580 USD approximately for a single applicant. So that's an option as well. Greece, about $2,100, $2,200 is passive income requirement there. It allows you to live in Greece and enjoy the islands and all that stuff. Lowest cost of living in the Eurozone. Greece. Interesting. What was that movie? It was a romantic comedy with the guy who marries the Greek lady. My Greek Wedding or something like that. That was kind of a cute story. My wife kind of likes that. But yeah, fix everything with Windex I think that's what that is. So, interesting. Southeast Asia, Philippines is about. You can do it. There's a number of different visa options for the Philippines. You have their SSRB Classic, which is $20,000 into a Philippine bank. For military retirees, it's even less. and so they have a special option for that. So that's why I kind of like the Philippines. Malaysia, that was it. The Sarawak program. Instead of the My Malaysia Second Home, which raised their federal one up to like $8,000 a month, the Sarawak program had the low one, which is about $1,500 USD. So the state of Sarawak runs its own My Malaysia My Second Home program, and that's for a single applicant. So it is a hidden gem in Asia. I'm going to have to look at that. That could be Philippines and Malaysia, but Malaysia has got real low crime. And for that low of an income requirement for Malaysia and the Sarawak, $1,500, that's definitely doable. Modern tradition, great food, excellent infrastructure, English being widely spoken, stable, comfortable, and an affordable option. So, interesting, very, very interesting. So, yeah, good. Philippines. So, yeah, definitely some options there. Some interesting things that we'll have to take a look at. And again, it all comes down to what we end up seeing. Go to where you're treated the best. And you're going to vote with your wallet, and that means you're going to vote with your feet. So when you end up with places like Thailand that screwed the pooch with immigration and banking and all of the problems with renewals, and even if you're allowed to be a digital nomad or a long-term visa, if you can't get banking or your accounts are being frozen, people our age and older are going to say, I don't have time for that. So I'm going to go somewhere else where I'm appreciated and that I'm going to appreciate in return. Again, don't be the ugly American. Don't be the ugly Westerner. So, yeah, very, very interesting stuff. But a lot of stuff going on. Retirement woes overseas for those in Thailand. It doesn't look good. And unless there's a huge switch and a turnaround in a short amount of time, I think Thailand's going to lose out not only on retirees are going to spend money elsewhere, they're going to lose out on tourism because those two are so closely intertwined that people are not going to want to put up with that crap. And especially if you end up, Philippines is actually experiencing this right now. When we talked about Philippines and making a law where you can't live stream or put anything up on social media, you have to get permission, you have to have links to, if somebody says, hey, I really don't like you taking a picture of me and my girlfriend, wife, whatever it is, or my family or my kids, you have to take the video down, or you could get charged with that. According to Filipino law, that's going to have an effect on retirees and also mostly on tourism. So Philippines might be stepping on their own foot. They might be shooting themselves in the foot with that one. I understand you don't want nuisance streamers like Vitaly. I totally get that, and I totally agree. But getting to the place of where you have such a far-reaching social media ban, that's just going to hamstring the tourism there, which is going to hurt a lot of Filipino people and tourism and families and so on and so forth. I don't think it's a step in the right direction. I think you need to have some accountability and have some laws against nuisance streamers, but if they're being a nuisance and they're harassing people and businesses, kind of like what that Johnny Somali kid is doing here in Korea, but he's going to be paying the price. I hope he gets 10 years or more. That would be awesome. 10 years is what I'm hoping for that nuisance streamer. But you need to nip that in the bud, and so I understand Philippines, but this knee-jerk reaction of not being able to film IRL streaming or even taking videos of your vacation, if there's people in the background, you have to blur them out. And even then, who has the capability to do that? The average person doesn't. I can do that in Final Cut Pro, in some high-end digital editing software, but really nobody wants to do that. And so now you have tourism companies in Philippines that offer cameras that you can take and go on these tours, and now they're not going to be able to offer that anymore. So yeah, that's going to be a huge thing. But I think there's going to be countries that are going to wake up and smell the coffee and see these other countries that are screwing themselves out of all this money with retirees and expats and digital nomads and so on and so forth. Somebody's going to be smart. Somebody needs to be smart and have a smart, efficient way to get these retirees and get these expats to say, hey, Thailand, they're screwing the pooch. You don't like all that? Come to our country. So maybe, what was it we were taking a look at? Oh, come on, where are we at? Oh, I hit the button. So Malaysia in Sarawak looks interesting. So I'm going to look into Malaysia, and I'm definitely going to look into definitely Malaysia, Portugal maybe, Greece maybe, but I'm kind of hesitant to go to Europe because, in all honesty, the home movies from my grandparents is all from Europe. And so I remember sitting down, I lived with my grandparents for a while, and I just have, spend the summers with them in the whole 9 yards. But I remember seeing the 8mm projector sitting in the living room with the screen. This is way before anything digital. And all of the home movies were about everything in Europe. And so I didn't want to go to Europe because I'd basically seen it all numerous times over and over and over. And it's just like, every summer it's like, hey, let's take a look at when we went to Germany, and let's take a look when we went to Italy, and all these places. And it's like, for the millionth time, I don't want to watch it again. Grandpa, please, no. But they relished in those memories, as they have the right to do. But that just kind of put me off of going to Europe. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But Malaysia looks interesting. I'm definitely going to look into that. That and Philippines. But Malaysia, Sarawak, Philippines and Malaysia. We're going to look at those as a plan B. We'll see what happens. Those look good. I definitely have to look at Malaysia. I know they've got real good medical care, low crime, low income requirement of $1,500 a month, which isn't, that's not bad at all. That's definitely doable. It's better than the Malaysian My Second Home, which went up to like $8,000 a month. So yeah, that might be worth jumping in on getting either that or the Philippines SSRB for a retired military, because you can get a discount and it's next to nothing. And who's to say you can have more than one type of retirement visa? I imagine you could have one with Malaysia, My Second Home, Sarawak, and then the Philippines, and have two of those if you wanted to spend the money to do that. We'll have to do a price comparison. So yeah, maybe I'll compare Malaysia and Philippines, and we'll do a video on that. Sri Lanka offers My Dream Home Visa program, essentially a retirement visa. Sri Lanka? Really? Sri Lanka? It's in Southeast Asia. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's down off of the coast of India. Okay. Yeah. Which is right across the bay from Thailand and Singapore and Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok. So it's kind of around that area. So you got the, let me see if we just pull this up. So Sri Lanka is, let's move that out of the way. Make that smaller, must be smaller. So there is Sri Lanka right there, and there's India, and they have Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Phuket, Malaysia, Singapore. So yeah, Sri Lanka's there. Interesting. Close to the Maldives. Interesting. Yeah, interesting. I'll have to look at that and see their visa program. So I've got homework for me. You've given me homework. So we're going to look at Malaysia. We're going to look at Philippines and Sri Lanka. That never even crossed my mind on that. So, in So we'll see. We'll take a look at that later on. So anyway, yeah, interesting stuff. And the question pops up. Yes, Malaysia sounds like Plan B for me as well. Good. We'll have to look into that. We'll deep dive into this and see. Philippines, Sarawak, my Malaysian second home, and I don't know. Let's just do a quick cursory glance at my dream home retirement visa for Sri Lanka. The visa is specifically for foreign nationals who are over 55, so I've got that nailed. Going to be 59 in a few months. Program is initial deposit requirement and monthly income. Initial deposit of $15,000, not bad. Monthly remittance of $1,500 a month. And maybe a little bit more if you have other family members. Passport, police clearance, completed application form. That doesn't seem bad. The visa is initially for 2 years, renewable every 2 years as long as you maintain the financial requirements and you don't get in trouble. Again, nice and simple and easy. Your spouse and any dependent children under 18 can be included. You're not permitted to engage in any form of paid employment in Sri Lanka, which is fine. So yeah, definitely. Income requirement of $1,500 a month. We'll have to look at all that stuff and eating out and costs and rents and so forth. Money goes really far for food, transportation, natural beauty, rich cultural heritage, has a recorded history of over 2,500 years, blah, blah, blah. Accessible visa, economic and political instability are the significant concern. Has gone through several economic crises leading to high inflation, shortage of goods, although this has improved over the recent years in political unrest. While the situation has stabilized, the risk of future instability is another risk. Outside of Colombo and major tourist areas, infrastructure can be lacking. Roads poor, high-speed internet might not be available everywhere. Healthcare system is good in Colombo, and good quality private hospitals. Standard healthcare in rural areas is basic. You might have to travel to other areas, if you're in those other areas. Dealing with government departments can be slow, inefficient, and sometimes frustrating. So, you must be comfortable with a higher level of risk and unpredictability because of the economic and political changes. Still, it's got me curious though. So anyway, yeah, we're going to close this video out. So thank you for all of the cool information that you've provided in the discussions. That is always fun. I like it when we interact like this. So hats off, stars to everybody. Like and subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate that. And then to close this out, you can reach me at the email address there just to say hi or whatever. I answer every single one of my emails, be it might be a couple days or so, but I eventually answer everybody. If you like and subscribe to the channel, that would be the best thing that you could do for me. But if you want, you can buy me a coffee. As we can see over here, there's a link in the description box, and these people down below bought me coffee, which is really cool. Not required. I would rather have the like and subscribe to the channel. So with that, we're going to sign off. Thank you for everybody. We will see you on another video where we'll talk about those other things, and I might do some other hobby stuff videos, but stay tuned. Eventually we'll get back to Philippines, Sarawak, my second home, and maybe Sri Lanka. I don't know. We'll see. We'll look into that. Maybe that'll make the list, maybe not. But with that said, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you. I like the discussion and the times that we have. So, CB comes back and says, oops, the program has been suspended. Well, that makes it easy. We'll just drop that off the list, and we'll just do Philippines and Sarawak, my Malaysian second home. So we'll take a look at those two. So I have some homework to do. We'll kind of dig into that and see what the requirements, see what the crime is, cost of living. I'll try to do a big video on that and compare those two. Try to get in the ballpark in regards to that, and we'll take it from there. So, all right. Great. Hey, thanks for the information. If there's anything that I need to be made aware of, contact me on the email. I would appreciate that, especially if I say something stupid or wrong. I need all the help I can get. So we'll just leave it at that. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you on the next video. And peace. We'll just call it good. That's it.